Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. And the Sharks survive in a game that they had no business being this close. So we're going to dig into how lopsided this game was, talk about kind of the mounting injuries on the forward lines, and if it's time to look at a top prospect potentially to bring up. So all that and more on today's episode of Locked On Sharks.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm your host, JD Young, contributor at Fear the Fin and San Jose Hockey Now. I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch this on YouTube as well. And the Sharks win 3-2 in a game that should have been like way more than that. The Sharks in the first two periods thoroughly outplayed the Coyotes. The shot attempts, the expected goals for the Sharks were the dominant team, and it was kind of the special teams that let down the Sharks a little bit in this game, and kind of let the Coyotes get back into it. But a lot to talk about. You have Kunin's injury. James Reimer was back. The Sharks kind of turtling in the second and the third period there. So let's kind of look at I guess the big thing is how dominant the Sharks were. And if there's anything to take away from this, because being dominant is one thing, but you're doing it against the Coyotes. And we talked with our preview episode with Robin and Carl yesterday on just how young this Coyotes team and just kind of how they're learning to kind of win games. And I know they beat the Bruins over the weekend and stuff, but this team, there's a lot of young pieces and they're trying to figure things out right now. And the Sharks should have dominated this game. They are a much better team, at least in the forward department, right? You have legitimate stars, and I know that the Coyotes have some young, really great players, and Clayton Keller and Lawson Krause and stuff. But the Sharks have legitimate stars, and Timo Meier and Tomas Hertl, and Logan Couture is an aging star, but he's been off to a great season this year. And the Sharks, they dominated this game, okay? 5-on-5, our friends over at Natural Statric. Expected goals for 3.18 to 1.07 at 5-on-5, okay? For the Coyotes, to break it down even further, so they had 1.07 expected goals for. That means kind of all their shots and everything they did should produce 1.07 expected goals for. The third period alone for the Coyotes, they produced 0.67. So 2/3 of their work was done in the third period. That's how dominant the Sharks were in this game against the Coyotes. For the Sharks, their first period expected goals for 1.18. Again, this is just 5-on-5 even strength, right? The second period, 1.48 expected goals for the Sharks. They're doing more in one period than what the Coyotes did the entire game. And even in the third period, where it felt like the Coyotes were dominating this game, 0.53 expected goals for the Sharks to the Coyotes 0.67. And that's, again, 5-on-5. That doesn't count the, when they were down and down a man, or when the Coyotes had the empty net, stuff like that. This is just 5-on-5 time. High danger chances, 13-3 in favor of the Sharks. They had 81% of the high danger chances. Scoring chances, 28-11. Again, the Coyotes had 11 in the entire game. Has 45 minutes of time on ice at 5-on-5. The Coyotes had 11. The Sharks had 28. The Sharks had 14 scoring chances in the second period alone. In less than 18 minutes, they had more scoring chances than the Coyotes did in 45 minutes, okay? Corsi for 51-32 Again, the Sharks 61% of the Corsi 4 actual shots, 32-16, 65% of the actual shots for these Sharks. Like they thoroughly outplayed. And if they had gotten it to 4, and it was like 4-1 going into the third period, we probably feel way better about the Sharks than we do right now. And again, like the Sharks deserve to win this game, and it should not have been this kind of nail biter game at the end. Yeah, like those numbers are outstanding. That's what I'm not saying the Sharks are a good team, but that's what good teams are supposed to do to really bad teams. And the Coyotes, I know the Sharks are down there in the bottom of the standings, but they have more talent than the Coyotes. You know, between Erik Karlsson and like all the guys I mentioned before, they're just a more talented team. But the Coyotes, you got to give it to them. They stuck around in this game. They made some saves when they had to. They killed off a couple penalties. And then, you know, at the end there, that third period, they were flying around. They were making chances. They hit 2 posts in the third period. Like this could have been a tie game going into overtime. And that's where kind of the next thing for the Sharks is that learning how to win and how to put a team away type of situation. And in today's NHL, with scoring up so much, you have to, 2-goal leads are not, it's the most cliche thing, right? 2-goal leads is the worst lead in hockey because you tend to take your foot off the gas and you kind of turtle, and then the other teams can come back, especially how much scoring is this season. But we see it with our Sharks, right? They are putting up a lot of goals most nights. You know, it's nothing for this team to score 3, 4, 5 goals a night, but you gotta the good teams, they put away that team. If the Sharks had gotten it to 4-1 by the end of the second period, you have a 3-goal lead. James Reimer's, you know, kind of coming back into it. You feel really good. You can roll your lines. I know, especially tonight when you're down Luke Kunin, you know, it was hurt in the first period. You know, Barabanov was a late scratch. Like Svechnikov was in the dressing room in pregame warmup. So I know there's guys hurting on the forward line. So it would have been nice to have been able to spread out and then not have to play, you know, poor Logan Couture, Nick Bonino, and Nico Sturm having to play basically the last 2 minutes because you don't have any other defensive-minded forwards or forwards that you can trust out there in a big moment when you're trying to hold on to a lead so desperately. So we'll get into kind of how the numbers kind of laid out. I want to talk about the defense, and then potentially, you know, with all the injuries that are starting to mount up front, if it's time to bring up Bordelot or Eklund, maybe, potentially, hopefully. So, but before we do that, do want to take a quick break, talk to you guys about our friends over at BetOnline. You guys know by now, BetOnline, the #1 source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get all the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. You've got pro football playoff push happening right now. College bowl season is here. So if you want to bet on all the insane bowls that are going on, please do so. Bowl season's the best. I don't want to hear anything about it. There's nothing better than coming home on a Tuesday afternoon and putting on a random college football game. You got basketball, pro, college. It's going on. World Cup, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here for the World Cup. They've got everything you need over at betonline.net. If you love sports podcasts, which you would do because you're listening to one right now, you can find those at BetOnline as well. They're the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. So head to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, let's try to dig into the lines a little bit tonight, especially because a lot of guys played with a lot of different, you know, especially with Luke Kunin going out. That's your third line winger right there. We know he normally is playing with, you know, that third line's kind of right now is Svechnikov, Sturm, and Kunin. Again, now so Matt Nieto on IR. Luke Kunin left the game after the first period. We don't know the extent. Again, the Sharks, they don't play again until Saturday, so gives them a little bit of time. We'll be interested to see what the Sharks do right now, especially in the forward department. CJ Seuss is up right now, but the Barracuda are on a road trip. They're in Vegas for Wednesday's game. And then I think they're in Colorado this weekend, and then they go up to Vancouver. So it'll be interesting to see if they recall someone, who they recall, right? Of course, Jeffrey Viel was recalled last time, but we're starting to see injuries in these kind of middle six guys, and you're going to want to replace those with actually talent, with actual talented guys. You want to replace them with real prospects or guys who can actually fit. Like, you don't want to put Jeffrey Viel in the top six. That's just not the role he's for, right? CJ Seuss, same thing. Those are kind of your bottom six type of guys. And it's not like Oscar Lindblom or Noah Gregor or Svechnikov or any of these other guys have really kind of made a claim to be a top kind of six guy. So it'll be interesting to see if they feel like Kunin's going to be out for a while. Matt Nieto is not going to be back for a little bit. If they're going to have to maybe rip the Band-Aid off a little sooner than maybe they wanted to, and bring up a Bordeleau or an Eklund who can come in and help provide top 6 minutes, right? You don't want to put Eklund on the fourth line because it's please don't put Eklund on the fourth line. Anyway, we shall, just interesting to see. We'll probably know more on Thursday after the Vegas game. Henderson. We'll know more probably on Thursday if the Sharks are going to recall someone and bring them back. That would give them potentially Thursday, but most likely Friday, a full practice for them. And then we would know a little bit more on Saturday going into it. So, but let's look at the lines, how they've kind of performed right now. Again, they're kind of a bit of a mess. Everybody was kind of playing with everybody, but Labanc, Hurdle, Meyer pretty much stayed together, right? 9:30 time on ice and just absolutely dominant. 16 shot attempts, gave up 3. Actual shots was 9-2. Did give up a goal, so not a good look when you give up a goal on 2 shot attempts. No math guy, but that's 50% right there. Expected goals for 0.59. Expected goals allowed 0.29. And then 3 high danger chances, 7 scoring chances. Like, they're just continually rolling. 7 offensive zone starts. Love to see it again. David Quinn relying on this top line and to do what they continue to do. Gregor, Couture, Bonino, 651. So again, Gregor kind of sliding in here for Barabanov's injury. 5 shot attempts, 7 given up. 2 actual shots on goal was 2-2. So they did do a good job of limiting the actual shots. Nick Bonino, he scores goals and he blocks shots. Those are the 2 things Nick Bonino does. 0.33 expected goals, 4 scoring chances given up, 4 created, 4 allowed. 1 high danger, 1 allowed as well. Mostly, of course, the defensive zone starts. They had 5 defensive zone starts. No other line had more than 2. So not a bad job. But again, for a team like Arizona that really struggles to produce offense, they do their job. So Lindblom, Sturm, Svechnikov played 5 minutes. 3 shot attempts, gave up 1. Actual shots was 1-0. So good job there. Didn't really produce much in the expected goals department. Had a scoring chance, had a high danger. So Gadovich, Lawrence, and Gregor also played 239. So Gregor kind of was getting a little bit of the bounce there. 5 shot attempts, so pretty good. I was gonna talk about Lawrence here in a second. 3-1 actual shots on goal. 2 scoring chances, high danger. So Lawrence, I thought, played pretty well until he gave up. He had that elbow at the very, very end of the second period. It was called a high stick. Clearly didn't hit with a high stick, but when they showed the angle kind of from the side, and he goes up and elbows Bukestad right in the face, and Bukestad's got the blood coming down. Like, it's not a high stick, but they got a penalty on him, and he deserved a penalty there for elbowing. Just don't elbow guys in the face. If it was the other way around, Sharks fans would be furious, right? They were furious after all the hits to the head for all the Sharks players, like, just don't hit people in the head. It's not good. It's not fun. So the defense, oh my. Continue to see kind of the haves and the have-nots when it comes to the defensive pairs. Harrington and Carlson. Harrington had himself a pretty good night tonight. And the Magna Carlson line defensive pair continues to do good things. Carlson was an absolute wizard tonight. 32 shot. So his Corsi 4 was at 74% tonight. 32 shot attempts and gave up 11. It wasn't until like midway through like the second period where they gave up their first shot attempt with Magna and Carlson. Magna 68.29% shot attempts, so 28-13. And then Harrington starting to kind of figure things out on that bottom pair. 15 shot attempts, 6 against. Did have 2 points tonight too. So again, kind of Harrington starting to maybe figure things out here. So Jay, Locked On Blue Jackets, don't you wish you had Scott Harrington back? So, but Vlasic, Benning, that line really that defensive pair really kind of struggled tonight. Vlasic, again, so remember, 5-on-5, the Coyotes had 32 shot attempts at 5-on-5, right? Vlasic was on the ice for 15, so almost half of their shot attempts came when Vlasic was on the ice. So he had 8 shot attempts for 15 against. Matt Benning, 8 shot attempts for 13 against. So this pair really struggled tonight to kind of play, keep Arizona from creating the shot attempts. And going to be interesting to see, especially when Ferraro comes back, if that pair is broken up. They've been playing together for most of the season, but it'd be interesting to see what David Quinn does there, or if he does anything, right? But Ferraro should be back here pretty soon. Hopefully, I know he started to kind of practice. It's gone from week to week to now kind of day to day, at least recently. And expect, especially with some time off here, hopefully Ferraro can be getting back on the ice here soon, especially they have the road trip here coming up this weekend. But yeah, that defensive pair, and it's, again, we talk about how the Coyotes really struggled to kind of create shots. Their highest kind of Corsi 4 was Matthias Maselli, 16 shot attempts and gave up 15. So he was at 51% when that was the Coyotes' best Corsi 4. While the Sharks had multiple players. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players over 65%, right? So Kevin LeBanc, terrible penalty on the power play, but Corsi 4, 19-4. But yeah, that power play, that I can see the please Coyotes guy, hang on to your stick at some point. But LeBanc, don't put yourself in that position. So killed that power play and went to a 4-on-4. So before we finish up, talk about James Reimer, his return, kind of what this means for the Sharks if we're just going to see a healthy dose of James Reimer coming up. Do want to let you guys know about our friends over at the Locked On Sports Today podcast. So thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On Sports Today. They kind of are our flagship, if you will, podcast. So they cover the games that matter the most, the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard, behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Our old friend James Reimer back tonight, and the Sharks kind of did him a favor, right? They let him kind of ease back into it before he faced the onslaught. He only had 22 shots tonight and saved 20 of them, so a little over 900 save percentage there. Breaking it down of where the Coyotes were getting their shots from. So they had 3 high danger shots tonight. 2, and James Reimer only made 1 save. So not typical of James Reimer there. with the high danger save being kind of that low. 5 mid danger and then 12 low danger shots. So they saved all those. So Sharks did a good job of kind of keeping it out of the peripheral, or keeping it kind of on the boundaries there and queuing up. So little rust is to be expected with Reimer. You've played one game basically since Thanksgiving, right? That he played the game after Thanksgiving. Did not look healthy there and got kind of worked that game. And expect a little bit of rest, right? Pretty nice kind of invite back into it, playing this Coyotes team, which has kind of struggled to score goals. So we'll see what they do. They've got a back-to-back this weekend road trip. They've schedule gets a little bit heavier here going into Christmas. So it's going to be the Reimer show for now. And then Capo Kakinen's probably going to be sprinkled back in. They're going to have to, you can't rely on James Reimer to play every game. You're going to have to turn to Capo Kakinen at some point. And I know while Reimer was out, Capo Kakinen did not look great. And Ito Makanemi, Makanemi looked really good against the Ducks. But again, the Ducks are really bad. They got blown out tonight, 7-0. Like this Ducks team is terrible, and they should fire their head coach because whatever they're doing is just not working, right? This Ducks team they're bad. So not trying to take anything away. Makanemi looked great. He made the saves. He made some big saves, especially that 2-on-1. Made some big saves in some big spots there, right? To kind of keep that game from making that a nice 6-1 victory. But expecting Makanemi to go do that in Calgary. Sharks play Calgary twice in a row next week, right? Go do that in Minnesota. Minnesota's got a lot of weapons. It's a lot to ask for a guy right away to going from playing the AHL to the Ducks, which the Ducks team is poo-poo platter bad. And then, now I need you to, come play a bunch of games. Capo Kakinen, he really, really needs to find his game and find it quickly, because James Reimer's not going to be here come March, right? The Sharks are going to trade James Reimer because they're not going to make the playoffs, and James Reimer is a valuable asset to a team that is trying to make a playoff cup run. James Reimer can come in and play backup. He can play spot duty. If you need Reimer to play a bunch of games while maybe your starting goaltender is getting healthy, James Reimer can do that. We've seen him do that for the Sharks. And imagine if he actually had a real defensive effort in front of him. James Reimer is really good. So, but Capo Kakinen, I know we keep playing this game with him, but you got to do it at some point. If not, you're going to wonder what they're going to do. Are you really going to run out a Aaron Dell, Ito Makanemi pairing come March? And maybe you try to see if you can sneak Capo Kakinen down into the AHL. But honestly, I think if he does if Capo Kakinen get put on waivers, I think a team will take a shot on him, just because one, his contract's not that bad, right? It's $2.5 million. And two, you could easily talk yourself into, well, look at the Sharks' defensive structure in front of him. It's not that great. Maybe if you're a better team with a better defensive structure, you might be able to kind of fix the kinks with Capo Kakinen. So I'm trying to kind of dig into the Capo Kakinen situation a little bit more. So hopefully have something for you here soon on that, but fingers crossed. Anyway, that's going to do it for me tonight. So we got a Barracuda game Wednesday night as they take on Henderson. So it should be a fun game. I feel like Henderson's not very good, and the Barracuda are kind of starting to get things rolling here. So feel really good about that. Tomorrow is episode 700. So special guest coming on. So I can't believe 700 episodes of Locked On Sharks I've done now. So that'll be tomorrow. Friday, we'll get you guys ready for the weekend. What's going on? All the games going on this weekend. And so, make sure you guys are following me on Twitter at MyFryHole. Follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Of course, you can listen Apple, Spotify, Odyssey, wherever Amazon Music, wherever you get podcasts, you can continue to listen to them there. Watch us on YouTube. Until then, bye, friends.